Bon dia a tothom. Buenos días, good morning. Em plau donar-vos la benvinguda a la sessió virtual organitzada per CIDOB en col·laboració amb l'àrea metropolitana de Barcelona, en la que tenim el plaer de comptar amb en Jan Olbrycht, membre del Parlament Europeu. Amb ell parlarem del marc financer plurianual de la Unió Europea i del programa New Generation de la Unió Europea. En particular, volem discutir quin és el paper i les oportunitats que aquests dos instruments ofereixen a les ciutats i a les àrees metropolitanes. El CIDOB en els darrers anys ha fet una aposta clara per apropar-se a les ciutats i a les metròpolis com a actors emergents de les relacions internacionals i també com a esferes de govern que juguen un paper clau en els principals reptes que afronta el planeta. La pandèmia ha consolidat el seu rol i ha situat les ciutats i àrees metropolitanes a la primera línia de les polítiques de recuperació post-Covid. Veurem, a través de la intervenció del senyor Olbrycht, de quina manera i en quins recursos la Unió Europea donarà suport als governs territorials en el procés de reconstrucció post-crisis. I will now switch to English so that our guests can follow us. As President of CIDOB, I would like to thank you, our guest and speaker, Mr. Jan Olbrycht, for accepting our invitation to give a conference on multi-annual financial framework and the program Next Generation Union European, the role and opportunities for cities and metropolitan areas. I now give the floor to Mr. Ernest Maragall, who will introduce our guest. But before, allow me to thank you, Mr. Maragall, and the Metropolitan Government of Barcelona for their long-standing support. Their commitment with CIDOB makes our work possible. Thank you very much. Ernest, the floor is yours.
Okay. Well, hello everybody. Hello, Mr. Jan Olbrycht. To share with you this morning in these difficult times, but also in these exciting and stimulating times. No, at least for all that feel as yourself, as myself also, fully Europeans and fully committed with what is going on in our countries, in our societies. No? I think that I can remember all your the task you are doing in and I know I can remember what European Parliament, but I am aware of your in continuity from in all these years, and you know, now when one thinks about the next generation EU and the roles and opportunities for cities and metropolitan areas, one can think immediately and the eventual contradictions that we can feel in these days, today, especially here in Catalonia, for instance. The contradiction, I say, between what is going on in the short term, the present, the religious present, today, tomorrow, next week, and the urgency, the concept of urgency, of emergency, the concept of what should we do in order to help to sustain, to maintain our social cohesion and the minimums of subsistence and welfare in our countries. And then also we have the duty to look far, to look at the horizon in the next months and years, everywhere, also in not just in our cities, but in all our countries in the whole Europe. And we, when we read and we see the debates, the decisions that you are taking in the European, in the different institutions of the European Union, we can imagine, the difficulties and the complexities of your work. Especially in this field of deciding what should be done by everyone, by every administration level, by countries, by states, by regions, and by cities. But it's in fact it's the general debate, as you know perfectly, Mr. Olbrycht, because um, from your role, I think that I should just present you as the champion of cities in Europe, not the champion of regions and cities, but mainly in cities. And then because from the urban interloop, you are developing a real task in this sense. But now I think this just two reflections. One, this contradiction between urgency and mid and long term. There is a possibility that all the resources we need to afford the urgencies finish by consuming our capabilities, our possibilities in looking far. That's I don't. Today, I'm not so sure that the immense amount of money that Europe and the European institutions are deciding to apply, and it's based on a good decision. It's a new, important, and good decisions. We have the possibility that immediately appear is not sufficient. Is not able to afford all the problems, all the complexities, all the social difficulties, in all the economic recovery needs that we know perfectly. We have a common point of view, a common diagnostic on what should be done in terms of ecological transition, climatic change, digital transition, etc. But it's not so clear if we will be able to do everything at the same time, and simultaneously to avoid the collapse of our economies, of our societies. That's the first question. Then the other is clear also, I think. We know that we will have money, but who will and how it will work the decision-making process? Who will be taking? Just the state as ever? Just the big countries condition it, or thinking of balancing with the east countries and south countries in the other side? Which will it let some space for regions and cities in metropolitan areas? I think it's also a question that should be considered nowadays. And then finally, Mr. Olbrycht, I know that we are all sure that in the next months will be decisive. No, the next 3 months probably you have to finish the process of meeting, of approving the multi-annual financial framework, the MFF, and also and how to match this and add this to the next generation EU program that is already established. But more than that, I know that you are also personally involved and committed with the old question, the whole issue of our resources for the European Union. And I have read your papers about how to put together this our resources concept with the approval of the MFF for the 21-27 period. Then I think there's a lot of questions, and then that's why we are so impatient to hear you and to ask you about all these things. And just consider, Mr. Olbrycht, that you are in a space, in a city, in an institution, CIDOP, and Metropolitan, on behalf of which I am talking at this moment, that we know what should we do. We know what we we would like to be done in our cities, in our regions, in our countries. We have a lot of projects prepared. We are working and defining and waiting for the moment to be submitted to the European institutions. But that's why it's important the question of which will be the role of cities and region in this decision-making process. When we read and I finished when I read the papers from European Union, from some Council and Commission, and when I read the first papers coming from the Spanish state, my concern grows up because there is no just very few or nothing related to this role of cities and regions in the decision-making process. Of course, it has to be also a matter of investment shared by public and private sectors. Of course, it's a good decision to put public money in place to be multiplied, developed by private investors. But it's not incompatible. It should be not incompatible with the role of, I think, with the cities and regions in order to determine, to defining fields, issues, and projects by themselves. Then, welcome to Barcelona, Mr. Jan Olbrycht. We wait for hear you and to put you, I'm sure, a lot of questions, a lot of our thinkings about all these matters. In any case, and finally, thank you for being here, Mr. Jan Olbrycht, because I know your immense commitment, and I am sure your time is not so easy to manage. And then, nevertheless, you are here in Barcelona. You are in Barcelona today. I hope you can be here physically, and that in order to salute you, to welcome you adequately as you deserve. Thank you for your immense Europeanism. You are the best representative of cities in the European Parliament, and the Parliament is the best representative of cities in European institutions. Because often, as you know perfectly, the contradictions between Council, Commission, and Parliament, just in Parliament we find someone that hears us, that understands what we are talking about. Thank you, and go on. Thank you.
Okay, so first of all, I would like to thank you for the invitation, and especially when my links with Barcelona were quite long. It's, of course, I had a chance and the honor to work in the Parliament with Mr. Ernest Maragall, and I think it was a very good time because we were making a lot of good things for cities in Europe. But before, when I was the president of my region, I had a chance also to have so many contacts with the Catalonia. So I think that even now, we are in the contact with the metropolitan area of Barcelona, and I think that the metropolitan area of Barcelona has a really important role to play to show the importance of the metropolitan areas in Europe, which is not very well understood, I must say. But I think that this is the idea which should be really supported around Europe. So thank you once again, and I will first give you the information about the state of play, and next how I see the possible consequences for the cities and regions in coming months and years. So now, state of play, because I am the member of the negotiation team. I am the rapporteur for the multi-annual financial framework. So in short, I'm the rapporteur for the budget. The co-rapporteur, my Portuguese colleague, Madame Margarida Marques, and who is from the Socialist Group, and we are together the co-rapporteurs for budget of 7 years. As you know, to understand the whole problem and the debate, it's important to see that we are not discussing in the Parliament and the Council the whole package. The package consists of 3 elements. First element is the budget. 7 years budget. In this budget, we have the very old policies like the cohesion policy, transport policy, research, etc., etc. And this budget requires, first of all, unanimity among the governments, unanimity, and next it is sent to the parliament, and the parliament gives his consent. Without the consent of the parliament, the budget cannot enter into force. So once again, the budget for seven years. Second element of the package is the planned recovery fund, the new generation. This is the something which should be created on the base of the changed decision concerning the own resources. I mean, it means the whole money which can be spent inside the European Union. The whole own resources consist of first budget and any other additional resources, including the possible credits. So to have it, we need in Europe creating the space for guarantees, so-called the headroom. And the headroom will allow the Commission to find the credits or to create the bonds on the financial markets, 750 billion for 3 years. This is very important. The budget is for 7 years. The recovery fund is for 3 years. But to create this fund, which is mainly to react to the consequences of pandemia, I mean the social consequences and economic consequences, to create this fund, it's necessary to first to take the decision by the governments, it means by the council, decision concerning the own resources, and this decision can be made only with the opinion of the parliament. We made it. So the opinion of the parliament is ready. So we made the opinion, we sent the opinion to the council. The council now should make the decision, and next, it should be ratified in all the national parliaments and some of the regional parliaments, depending on the legal situation in the member states. Altogether, about 41 parliaments. Without this ratification, there will be no room for guarantees, and there will be no fund. For a moment, council, it means governments, the ministers, they didn't make, or they haven't made a decision on the own resources. So in fact, they haven't started the ratification of this decision. Normally, the ratification of such a decision requires about 1.5 or 2 years. But so you can imagine that now we have 2 months to the end of the year, and without the ratification by all the national parliaments, there will be no fund, or the fund will be created much, much later. So this is the second element of the package, and I will be back to this. The third element of the package is the rule of law. The rule of law, I mean, the relation between the rule of law and the financial interests of European Union. And this is completely separate. It's separate legally. It means this is the regulation which should be accepted in the co-decision by the Parliament and by the Council in co-decision, in the Parliament with the normal majority, in the Council by the qualified majority of the member states. And this, it's now on the third stage of procedure. It means now that the presidency inside the Council of EU, the German presidency, they have just presented the version of the Council. So now the procedure is ongoing, and we will face the final compromise between the Parliament and the Council. So you see there are 3 different elements, but all of them are linked. They are interdependent of each other. Let me just explain you very shortly. Like the heads of the main political groups in the parliament, it means the EPP, Socialist, Liberals, I mean Renew and Greens, the presidents of these groups, they declare that if there is no mechanism making the link between the rule of law and European funds, there will be no agreement for budget. And this is a declaration of 4 heads of political groups. At the same time, we as a negotiation team, we said that we cannot imagine to accept the budget without the funds, because the budget is smaller because of the economic situation. So we need the fund as complementary to the budget. At the same time, some of the member states, including mine, Poland, said that if there is a rule of law which is very strict, they make the veto on budget and on fund. So you see that 3 completely separate elements are linked to each other politically. So let me now explain you some of the main elements. As far as concerns the budget, of course, the budget is relatively smaller than the former ones, and the budget especially has some important cuts in the European programs, like Horizon, like Erasmus, but there's also cut in the border control and the defense policy and the health fund, new health fund. So that's why we as Parliament, we are trying to explain to the Council, to the governments, that we will not accept to such a cuts in this budget. So we think the budget should be bigger. Of course, it requires the new money, or it requires the change of the structure of the budget. And we propose as the Parliament to change the structure of the budget, and this is our position. In terms of the fund, the recovery fund, what is really interesting is the construction, because this fund, which will be based on the credit from the financial markets, as you know, will be divided, if it's created, will be divided into 2 parts. One part will be loans for the member states, which will be, of course, paid back by the member states, and by the grants which will go to the member states. That's why there are some predictions or some kind of analysis which shows what is possible when we look at the situation during pandemic and concrete member states. So that's why we know some predictions what money probably will be available to concrete countries from this fund. Probably you have in your country the information that the Prime Minister has already got money. And I must clarify that there is, for a moment, there is no decision, neither for budget nor for the fund. What the Prime Ministers achieved after a very long meeting, 3 days and 4 days and 3 nights, etc., this is not a decision. This is a kind of political decision which gives the mandate to the ministers to negotiate. So everything they agreed unanimously is the base for negotiation. So there is no decision concerning concrete money yet. So we hope that, of course, that it will be done as soon as possible. But this recovery fund, as I said, will be based on the loans and grants. The big part of this fund will be for the program which is called Recovery and Resilience, and this program, which will be implemented by the national recovery programs, and the national recovery programs should be based on 3 elements. The national recovery program should be first based on the European semester. it means that the money should go to the necessary reforms. I underline it, because for necessary reforms and the investments which are linked, connected to these reforms. So, and of course, in the European semester, there are always the suggestion from the Commission which reforms should be made in concrete member states. So this is for reforms and investments. The other dimension which should be included in the national recovery program is a Green Deal. The Green Deal, with all the requirements of the Green Deal, it means the so-called green investments, but also the not all the investments, but the investments who are treated like climate oriented. So that's why what is important, I think, for you to observe the whole debate about taxonomy. Taxonomy means defining which investments can be treated really as climate investments and not only name climate oriented. I think especially important for Ernest Maragall when he was fighting for these elements inside the parliament, because we can see that very often someone is making all the possible investments and next to put just the subtitle, the climate oriented. No, what we need is the real climate oriented investments who will have the influence on the climate situation. So that's why the taxonomy will be a set of criteria which investments will be treated as climate oriented. So it's very important how it's linked to the Green Deal. The third element which is necessary is digital agenda. The digital agenda should be also included in the national program. So once the national program is ready, of course, let's think that the fund will be created. So if we have all the ratification, if we have the credit, next we will have the recovery fund. Once the recovery fund is ready, the member states will present their national recovery programs to the Commission. But what is really new is that it's not the Commission who decides which national program will be accepted or not. The Commission will give their evaluation, and next it will go to the Council, and next they will be the ministers who will vote if the national program will be implemented or not. So I think this is very important. This is very new. And this is very new. Why? Because this is going to be a political problem between the governments if they think that the program of the other country it's good enough that they can vote for this. So the national program will be voted. But after 2 years of functioning of the fund, there will be a kind of revision if the milestones which will be defined are achieved. If the milestones are not achieved, the program can be changed. If for example, the situation of pandemia has different consequences for different member states, is important that the whole program can be changed. So I think, but of course, let's add to this that of course, if we have ratification, if we have the credit, if we have the fund, this credit should be paid back. Should be paid back to the financial markets. Of course, part of it will be paid by the member states because they will take the loans, but the part of grants will be paid back by the European Union. So that's why we speak about the mutualization of the debt. And of course, to pay it back in 7 years or more, it will be necessary either to change the national contribution to make it much bigger, or to cut the policies, to find money to repay it, or to create the new own resources, like digital tax, like plastic, like the carbon border tax, or hopefully the tax concerning the big internet companies and the global ones, or financial transaction tax. This debate, it's now absolutely necessary to have money to pay back the credit. If we don't have the new resources, the credit will have to be paid back anyway, but from the other resources. So let me summarize this part. It means, first, the budget, 7 years, and the unanimity of the member states and the consent of the parliament. And now we are fighting as a parliament to have more money to concrete policies. This is first. Second, the fund, which should be, to create the fund, is necessary to change the own resources decision and ratify it by all the national parliaments. And next, to create the fund, the process has not started yet. And there is also the danger that this process can be blocked by some of the member states because of rule of law. If it happens, there will be no fund. Let's be very clear. All the fund will be much, much later. Probably we will not even have time to make it on time now. The third element, rule of law, which is separate, but which in fact creates the biggest emotions now on the European stage. And this debate on the rule of law will influence the fund and the budget, fund and budget. So I think this is really, really, very, very important. And so this is the part. The question which is asked very often by the cities and regions. When we can expect that it will be finalized? Good question. But of course, what is possible theoretically is that we will manage to have MFF, I mean budget agreement. This is first part with the council. Theoretically, it's possible, but the question is if we find a compromise or not. And of course, even if we have the compromise, the question is if some of the member states will not veto it for the rule of law problem. But anyway, theoretically, it's possible till the end of the year. Second part, fund. For this fund, we need ratification. We are now in October. This is less and less probable that the ratification will be possible till the end of the year. So it's possible that it will be made next year. So the fund will start later. And what is the consequence? The consequence is that it will be difficult for the budget to function without the fund. So we as Parliament, we also repeat that we have to guarantee the final beneficiaries like cities and regions that they will get money because they can start the programs. And that's why we said that there's also the solution in the treaty to copy the ceilings of the budgets from 2020 to next year. But what is necessary is not only to copy the amount of money, but also to prolong the legislation. Because, for example, cohesion policy is only valid till the end of this year. So it's necessary to prolong all the legislation. If there is no agreement, it will be necessary. So I think that I just want to inform you that there is no the catastrophe that there will be no money. No, I think that if there is no agreement on the budget, there will be this kind of solution, which is a kind of exit strategy. So it's not a good solution, but maybe it will be necessary. But we have also remember that big part of the cohesion money is not spent yet. So that's why 21 and 22, in fact, will be also to pay money from the programs 14-20. So I think that probably we need the budget to pay the programs which are now very, very important. And this is there is no a real danger not to have money. Now, the other question when you ask me is what about overall cities and regions? I think we have to understand that the situation is not changed very, very much, because as you know, the whole battle which is in the council is always about the national envelopes. This is the biggest and the strongest battle. So each government is fighting for the national envelopes. Of course, as far as concerns the budget for 7 years, the governments are fighting for the envelopes, especially in the cohesion and agriculture and transport, etc. So this is the biggest battle. In the cohesion itself, we are trying to reinforce the element we were fighting in the former years. It means to ring-fence some money. Why? Because there are some questions coming from the cities, especially the bigger cities, if there is any possibility to have the direct contact between the cities and European Commission. I don't think so, because it is possible, but it's only in the concrete, very, very, focused on the concrete elements, like the best innovative cities in Europe, or some amounts which are guaranteed for innovative cities and surroundings. Yes, this is it. I don't think that will be possible to have the direct contact with the Commission, because even for organizational matters, it should reduce the national envelopes, which the national governments will never agree, or and even more, it should require to make the staff of the Commission to be doubled. But I think that main element is to take it from the national envelopes. So, but what we are fighting all the time is to have in the European legislation the necessity, obligation for the member states to ring-fence the money to the cities and the functional areas. I think this is especially important for the cities and for the metropolitan areas. We were even fighting to have in the legislation the metropolitan areas, but probably we will not manage at the end. It will be much more about functional areas. But it's like absolutely obligation. I make it mandatory to the government to reserve the money for the functional areas. I think it's very good a reason to make it for the metropolitan areas as well. So this will be in the ERDF regulation. So this is what we are trying to do, to ring-fence money, which will be given absolutely obligatory to the cities, and not only this, but also to give the cities and the local authorities, like for example metropolitan areas, to give them the full responsibility to choose the project, and not to impose on them anything. So I think that this is ongoing battle. The legislation is not ready yet, but please observe the works on the ERDF, because this is the place where we are trying to put the elements of the money which will be ring-fenced for the cities and for the functional areas. And this is the element which is important. What is also important in the budget is also to observe the elements of the thematic objectives. Because depending on the type of region, there will be a different obligation for thematic objectives, and I think a different percent. So it's also important that the list of the eligible regions is changed, because there is the classification of the regions which are less developed and the transition regions and more developed. And so I think that the list of more developed will be longer. So I think that this is important for the cities and regions to observe concretely the result of the legislation, what is possible to be implemented and used from European money in this type of region, and in what percent. For example, we are fighting because the most important, of course, is the question of the communication and the transport, etc. And we are fighting to put in this priority, for example, the urban mobility. we are doing everything to just to put it into the priority, because we think that this is important. And now, of course, it's also the investments in the health infrastructure, etc. So I think this will be also changed, and I think I would like to draw your attention to the thematic objectives for the concrete regions, which allow to create the necessary percent to spend on this. So this will be in the budget, and the legislation now is being prepared, is not ready yet. The legislation is still ongoing. This is the debate in the parliament. My colleagues are doing it, and of course this can be found in this part. But we are fighting, as I said, to very clear the clear presence of the urban issues in the regulation. It will be, of course, there is a tendency to transfer money from cohesion to another policies. I think it's also very important. For example, it's firstly to transfer money from cohesion fund to connecting Europe facility, or to transfer money from cohesion policy to the research, or to transfer money from cohesion policy to invest EU, which will be for different parts of economy. I think it's very important, because this will be the decision of the governments. The governments, when the door is open, the question which government will use it to transfer money from cohesion to another elements. It's like also the possibility to transfer money from cohesion to the Just Transition Fund, which will be for the post-coal regions. It's also the possibility to transfer money. So, of course, the colleagues working in the regional committee in the parliament, they all the time they're protesting that the money for the cohesion will be reduced more and more because of these transfers. But as far as concerned the fund, the recovery fund, and the national recovery programs, I must say that for a moment, I don't see the very clear position of the local and regional in this program, because it's like the urgent, and this is temporary and very, very important to make it as soon as possible. And this is in the hands of the governments. So the question is if the local and regional authorities will be present in the national program, national recovery program, which next will be, as I said, voted. It's not very clear, because it's based on completely different regulation than the cohesion policy. I cannot exclude that the concrete governments, if the government wants to make the concrete investments and to make it quick and to make it efficient, they will have to do it through the cities and regions, because this is a level which is very efficient. But I think it will depend absolutely on the government how they create the national recovery program. So I cannot say anything more, because this is still ongoing, and this is also the debate about the recovery and resilience regulation. What will be possible, what will not be possible. But please remember, this is only for 3 years, so the money should be in fact planned and decided very, very, very quickly. So this is what I wanted to say. And this is about the state of play and our efforts to put the local and regional effort in the center. Of course, you have so many declarations that the cities are the most important, etc., etc. I know it, but the question is, what about the concrete implementation? And the implementation and the active role of the cities is still in the hands of the national governments, how they decide. So that's why we are trying to ring fence money and to oblige the government to give the possibility to the cities to decide. This is what I wanted to say, and of course I'm ready to answer your questions.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Olbrycht. I think that this was a very comprehensive overview on the state of play of the negotiations on 3 interrelated aspects that everyone is waiting for, and of course the pressure on the agreement to find a solution on these three simultaneous aspects of negotiations is very high, because of course the stakes are high, and the needs of the population across the European Union are also high. But as you rightly pointed out, in the European Union, as we usually refer to, nothing is agreed until everything is agreed, and here it is clearly the case with these three interrelated mechanisms on the MFF, the budget, the 7-year framework, the fund, the recovery fund, which is the more innovative, the most innovative part of what we are discussing at the EU level now, and the rule of law mechanism. Of course, I am sure that everyone who is listening to us or will understand the complexity of the negotiations, and this is where my first comment listening to you comes from. That there is a feeling among cities and regions, but also in the general public as well, that the needs are very high, and that of course we are the situation where the machinery or the procedures cannot wait forever until the solution is found. Basically, because the effects of the pandemic are still among us. The second wave is rising high across Europe, particularly, of course, in Spain and Barcelona, where we are having this virtual session. So, are we somehow witnessing another situation of an increasing gap between what citizens expect from these negotiations and what is actually happening on the ground? I'm very aware of the complexities of all of this, and the number of procedures that need to be fulfilled. But I have the feeling that unless we find, not in the current negotiation necessarily, but unless we find more flexible and more dynamic ways of deciding issues of such importance for citizens, we risk, and this is something that we all as citizens, European citizens, but also heads of state and government and members of parliament should have in mind when they refer to these issues. We have a risk of increasing disaffection towards the European Union and increasing questioning of the usefulness of the system. So this is the general framework that I think should be taken into account. I would like to ask you if you could go a bit more into the details of the rule of law question, because as you rightly point out, this is part of the negotiation. It influences the negotiations on the fund and also on the budget, if only because through this ratification in national parliaments, some member states are threatening to veto this the ratification of the fund in national parliaments. To what extent are these member states aware that by threatening with this veto, the whole castle is endangered? And this necessarily leads me to ask about the question that some member states are also very concerned about, and it is the regional funds that belong to the multi-annual financial framework. So, in a sense, I understand the political pressure to find a compromise for an agreement, but at the same time, to what extent are opposition parties in these countries also alerting on the fact that one veto on the fund, on the ratification of the fund, means also overall a veto in the whole package, and that is certainly something that might distress not only these governments but also their populations, who are benefiting from regional funds. And this is a bit of a contradiction in the position of these countries. This is the first question that I would like to ask to you. The second one refers to cities and regions that you were rightly pointing out, the mechanisms through which it is more feasible that cities have a say or an impact on the current negotiations. And there is, and this is a question that comes from Agustí Fernández de Losada, the head of our Global Cities program at CIDOB, and referring to the pressure that city networks are making on a guarantee for a 10% management of the funds channeled through cities. I understood you correctly that there is little place for cities and regions within the recovery fund, since they are in the hands of national programs and national governments. That there is more place within the ERDF funds to find or to channel resources to cities and metropolitan areas. But to what extent do you think the threshold of this 10% is feasible, or it is just a bit too complex to accomplish? So I will ask these first two questions. We have about 15 minutes left of the session, so I would give the floor back to you for these first two questions that I gathered, and I will wait for others to come, and I might ask you another question once you have answered these two. Thank you very much, Mr. Olbrycht.
Yes, answering your first question or first two questions, you are absolutely right. You're absolutely right that it can be the result of this. The consequence can be the lack of trust of the people towards European Union, and you know very well, especially during the crisis. The question, the people, they are asking the question, what is the European Union doing to protect us? I think that not many politicians, they explain to the people that the governments, they never agreed, for example, to have the health policy, common health policy. They never agreed to do it. So European Union has no competences in the health, so which is probably a mistake. But you know, me as a former mayor and the former president of the region, I can assure you that if I hear someone who is saying that the citizens of Europe, they want to have the clear answer on the European budget. No, let's be serious. The citizens of Europe, they are not thinking all the time about the structure of European budget. They want to have the answer for the very clear and simple question. Do we have money to, for example, to build the roads? Do we have money to protect our borders? Do we have money to buy the equipment for the hospitals? Do we have money to pay for the research for the vaccines, etc.? This is the way of thinking of everybody. Nobody's obliged to understand the complexity of the budget. Please, let's be serious. Neither on the European level nor on the municipal level. The people are not thinking about the construction of budget. This is for the people who are interested. The people are interested in the concrete answers. So we as politicians, we should be very clear to answer this question. Will we be able to do it? We will be able to protect the borders. Will we have money or not? This is very important. But of course, you're absolutely right that we cannot create the image that the people in Brussels, they are fighting for something which is completely not understood, and we don't have the consequences on the field. No, the battle in Brussels is not about just money. It's about the role of the European Union. It's about the competence of EU. It's about the responsibilities of the states vis-à-vis EU. And I think this is the main element. The whole battle, like rule of law, the whole battle is about the main, very deep problems of EU. By the way, you touch the problem of rule of law. Of course, I'm from the opposition party in Poland. So we repeat it all the time. that rule of law is one of the basic elements of the European construction. If someone is trying to neglect it, it is dangerous not for this country, but for everybody. For everybody, the whole construction is in danger. And in consequence, someone who is fighting for his position and is ready and is warning, because this is actually a warning, that we will block something else, which is not rule of law, but something else. It's like to send a message to the people, for example, in Spain, that we are ready to block it because we will never let you touch our system. But the consequence can be that there will be no money for the member state, for everybody, because so I think this is really very important, and we are absolutely aware of it. And please believe me, these governments who are doing it, they know very well. That's why they know that the strength of this warning is so big. But also let me also very clear that behind this are also the member states who are not specially interested in the credit, in the own resources and paying back. They are especially the richest country. They are not very vocal. You cannot hear them. But in fact, they are not fighting for the rule of law. But of course, they are not very happy to take such a big credit. So probably if someone will block the rule of law, they will be not very unhappy. So this is very, very complex. And I must assure you that everybody is aware of this. Both sides, someone who is warning, he knows what he's doing, and the effect will be very strong. By the way, they maybe don't think how it will be seen by the others. But anyway, this is the one element, and I think this is very, very important. By the way, I would like to explain you the elements of the rule of law, because to make it clear, the link between the finance and the rule of law is now discussed on 3 levels. One level, which is now proposed by the German presidency, is to use this mechanism only if we have the clear example of breaking the rules, So I'm like corruption. I mean, and to react by freezing money if there is corruption. The other level is if there are changes in the rule of law, in, for example, the judicial system and the independence of judges, etc., which can create the risk for the corruption and the other elements. So it's not the concrete case, but the risk. So this is can we freeze money for this country which changed their structure in such a way that it creates the risk for the financial interests of EU, corruption, etc. And the third element is much, much broader. Third level is like not only corruption, concrete examples, not only the risk of but also all the elements concerning European values like democracy, human rights, like the freedom of press, etc. And to make the link between this and money, saying that they are the base of the rule of law. And I think that the whole debate will be about this, will be about which level will be the base of compromise between the governments and Parliament. For Parliament, for the most of the members of the Parliament, they want to have the third one. I mean, the broad one. But of course, the German proposal, which is of course the result of the debate among the member states, is the first one. So just the concrete cases and to reaction to concrete cases. So we are now during the ongoing debate, but the situation is very important. It's not technical debate. This is the debate about principles. This is a debate about the principles of European Union. So I think that this is not just a fight between Parliament and about the Council, who is more important. No, because very often the the journalists, they presented that the parliament is not in a hurry, etc. But the second element you were asking is the very important percent of money, what we call for ITIs, to give the local authorities possibility to decide. We were fighting for 10%. Committee of Regions were fighting for 10%. The Commission proposed 6%. The state of play for today, the agreement between the Parliament and the Council today is on the level of 8%. So probably it will finish like this. So it will be not much more, but still a little bit more than before. And I think this is the state of play today, but of course the regulation is not ready yet. But let me give you some additional information. I have here on my iPhone the application which shows the spendings for concrete member states, which is updated for today. And I think it's also should explain you why there is, of course, there is a tension, but this is not the strongest tension. Because when you look at this numbers, you can see in Spain, the date for updating is 16th of October. It's today. And today we have concerning money from 1420, the money which is decided, I mean, not planned, decided. So I understand this is like the contracts are signed. The money which is decided is about 80% in October. So the deadline is December. So 80%. The money which is spent means that everything is ready with the Commission. The money has been sent by the Commission for the project. Now is more or less about 35%. I would like to draw your attention to this. It means that about half of this money will be spent 21-22, and so that's why we need budget 21, because there are no budget for old and budget for new. There will be only one budget, which will be for the old projects and the new projects. So that's why if we have this level of spending, it means that in coming 2 years, at least 2 years, the money will go to the old projects. So of course that we should be in a hurry and we should start. That's why the recovery fund is necessary to start immediately, because it's not linked to the old projects. Recovery fund is new. So, but we in Spain, for example, you have to finalize and to make it a spend. It's, as I said, now 35%. I would like to draw attention because it's very useful for the people from the local and regional authorities to understand. The next, it's of course important that it shows in concrete funds and concrete places, etc. So I think it's very useful to understand why. We know very well that even if we don't have the new programs from the very beginning, it will be necessary for next 2 years to use new money for old projects.
Very much again, Mr. Olbrycht. You are presenting something that is immensely complex in a very accessible way, and that is really appreciated. I know that Ernest Maragall also had a question for you, and I wonder whether he would like to step in at this point and ask the question directly. Also, there are other questions coming in. We have about 10 minutes left, no more than that. And I know that your time, Mr. Olbrycht, is also very short. So I will give Ernest the opportunity to step in if he wishes to. Other questions that have come and that you can take in your final comments if you wish. So is one by Eva Garcia, our senior researcher at CIDOP as well on global cities, who is asking about the role of the Committee of the Regions, to what extent you referred to to the committee when you were discussing on the percentage of money available for cities and regions. But do you foresee any other role for the committee of the regions? Also, to what extent Hannah Abdullah, also from CIDOP, researcher from the Global Cities Program, is asking to what extent the European Green Deal will help cities having a bigger say on the availability of funds and the programs that are fulfilled through cities. And Ernest Maragall was asking about the letter of Leipzig that should be soon approved by the German presidency of the Council, and that is asking precisely for a reinforcement of the role of cities. So 3 elements for you to take on the last intervention from your side, on the role of the Committee of the Regions, on the role of the European Green Deal, and on the letter of Leipzig. So I give the floor back to you for these final comments, and then we will close the session. Thank you very much.
Yes, as you probably noticed, from my experience as the mayor of the city, the president of region, I know that I cannot use a very complex structures to explain. So I prefer to be very frank and to tell you what I really think about the whole issue. Maybe it's not always politically correct. But let's start with the Committee of Regions. I would like to underline the importance of this institution. By the way, I was taking part in the creation of Committee of Regions when Poland was not yet inside the European Union. But I was the vice president of CMR, and I remember that it was a time that I was the president. I was the vice president with my president of CMR, Pascal Maragall. So I had the chance to take part in the creation of Committee of Regions. I think that there are different roles of different local representation. A Committee of Regions is the European institution, still fighting for the bigger role in the decision-making process. But of course, the Committee of Regions is situated like the opinion-making body. And of course, when I observe for many years Committee of Regions, depending on who is the head of the Committee of Regions, if the Committee of Regions behaves like a typical opinion body, it means that it's waiting for something which is presented by the Council and the Commission or the Parliament. And next day, the Committee of Regions give its opinion. To be very frank, it's not very useful because it's too late. It's too late. It's too late. If something is ready, you know very well from the practice in the cities, etc., to make the consultation when something is ready, it's very difficult to change it. But the Committee of Regions has a very important role to play during the process, not waiting for the final results, but to enter into the process, to influence the Parliament and the Council, especially the Parliament, to contact the parliamentarians, to be present during the debates, to contact by the mayors and the president of regions, the members of the Parliament, and to influence, to push them to the concrete elements. I mean, the Committee of Regions has a very big potential to do it. So I think that it was like, for example, with this percent, when Commission say 6 and we said 10, very quickly we contacted Committee of Regions, and the Committee of Regions not waiting for the final regulation. They immediately said, we need 10. Let's be serious. So that's why it helped us a lot. So I think that's why the Committee of Regions can be very useful, but this is different. I mean, members of the Committee of Regions, they have their role at home as mayors, the president of regions. We cannot expect that they will spend the whole time in Brussels like we have. But they can be very strong while asking the questions, while pushing the members of the Parliament. So I think this is really very important. So I think, but it depends very often it depends on the president of the Committee of Regions, how he behaves. If the Committee of Regions will fight for to be more important among the other institutions, this is a waste of time. But I think it can influence really the process of decision making. So I am trying to be in contact with the Committee of Regions all the time when I'm fighting for the budget, because I need the support during the process, not at the end. Second element, the role in the Green Deal. The Green Deal can be either, and also to be very frank, either a new slogan or a reality. I mean, Green Deal as a slogan is beautiful and can be used everywhere, etc. No, we should be very concrete. Green Deal is not about concrete funds. Green Deal should be in all the European policies. It's like the questions of urban issues. I think that with Mr. Ernest Maragall, we were fighting for this. Urban dimension of the European policy is horizontal. This is not only about cohesion policy. The urban dimension is in the transport, in the environment policy. Now with the health questions, this is everywhere. So that's why we need a kind of coordination. So the Green Deal is also about everything. It's not only about the cohesion policy and the fund. Let's remember that the plan for Green Deal presented by the Commission was 500 billion. It is in all the European policies, and from this, on the 10, not less than 10 at the beginning was for Just Transition Fund. But Just Transition Fund was a part of the mechanism of Just Transition. So Green Deal is a kind of horizontal approach. And for this horizontal approach, the importance of cities is growing. Because who is doing it in practice? In practice, who is taking care of the transport? Who is taking about the heating in the cities, etc.? The cities will be, it's absolutely inevitable. So I think that the governments, they understand it more and more, even if they don't especially want to fight for it. This is the case of the Leipzig Charter. In the past, we had, from time to time, we have a very important declaration made by the Council, by the Council of EU, not European Council, Council of EU. We had several declarations like this. Very important, that the cities are important, that we have to control, etc. One of them was Leipzig Charter, which was very interesting because first time it showed the complexity of the urban dimension, and of course the question of the sustainable development, and of course the integrated approach. It was the advantage of Leipzig Charter, integrated approach and not sectorial thinking on the level of the cities. So Leipzig Charter has been presented during the German presidency at the time. The Leipzig Charter is a programming document, it's a kind of guidelines. The change was important during the Dutch presidency, because the Dutch, which we can imagine they are very pragmatic, they said, let's not create another declaration, let's make something concrete. That's why they proposed the Pact of Amsterdam. And from this Pact of Amsterdam, it was the urban agenda has been created, and the partnerships. The partnerships which in fact give the possibility for the multi-level governance. Multi-level means commission, government, cities, expert, association of cities together. And you can imagine how difficult it is for all these people to be together around the same table. This is always very, very difficult, to be together, commission, government, and cities, and treat each other like equal. But this was a big advantage. And the partnerships are going very well, and it will be developed, of course, in future. Now we are waiting for the next. The German presidency probably in late November or December present the new Leipzig Charter. It means the next step. And what we ask the Germans very often, please do not make another declaration, but we need the next step. which is the result from the parliament. We need something very concrete. So that's why the German presidency will present two documents. One will be Leipzig Charter, which will be a kind of showing the importance of this, and the second will be implementation document. So, okay, so what we can do, what we should do, what is very urgent, and what should be in European policies. What is the weak point? The weak point is that it will not be obligatory for all the member states. It's still the same. It's like the voluntary base. It's like the governments who wants to sign it or they want to approve, they want to approve. I don't think it's good. We should make it. We should stress all the member states and all the governments to support it, because if not, it will be always the question: who is the owner? Who is the owner of this agenda, etc.? Who is the owner? Governments, this who signed, or the Commission, if not everybody signed, or the Council. So I think this is the weak point. But let's wait for the document, a new Leipzig Charter, and we hope and we expect that especially the implementing document will be something which will give the next steps. But please remember, urban dimension, we should keep an eye on this, should be horizontal, should be in all the policies, and not only about fight for money inside the cohesion policy. Then thank you for the invitation. Thank you for the meeting. Thank you especially for Ernest Maragall. It's a pleasure to meet him again. And I hope that if everything is okay, I will be, it's not maybe not very polite and modest, but I will be very, very satisfied if I can come one day to Barcelona and to regional Barcelona. Thank you very much indeed.
Mr. Olbrycht, thank you very much from our side as well. You've made a terribly complex issue in a very didactic way, and that is highly appreciated. I will now give the final floor to both Ernest Maragall and Antoni Segura for final words on this. From my side, let me say that we will be very happy to have you in Barcelona next time we are able to organize travels across Europe, and once the pandemic is over. And from my side as well, let me thank you very much for this session. But also thank Ernest Maragall and the Metropolitan area of Barcelona as one of the members of the board of CDOP for suggesting to organize this activity, for jointly organizing this, and also for having the opportunity to learn about many things. You didn't escape any of the questions that were asked to you on the Committee of the Regions of the European Green Deal, on the Leipzig Charter, on any other issues that were raised. So that is highly appreciated. And as I said, you made the topic very accessible for everyone who was listening to us and who are still online. So the last floor is both to Ernest Maragall and Antoni Segura.
Per mi primer?
Sí.
Com vulguis.
Sí, així tu tanques, Antoni. Thank you, Mr. Olbrycht. Thank you again. Thank you once more. No? Because as Paul Monier was saying, hearing you is always a learning process, no? A useful learning process. Thank you very much. I was just about to say you goodbye, but I would prefer to say you see you soon, no? In the sense, because I am here on behalf of this. I am the vice president of the Metropolitan area of Barcelona. And as probably you know, we are perfectly aware, we are members and we participate intensely in European Metropolitan Association of Metropolitan Areas. In fact, there is more than 40 metropolitan areas from Europe belonging to this network, and is European Metropolitan of EMA Association. And we have been in Brussels talkings with commission members, etc. But I am sure that if you would accept it, it would be very useful for us to share perhaps sometime in one of your urban interloop agenda, or with yourself directly, as you prefer, just in order to hear our concerns, and after hearing you, our growing concern, no? Because you are not very. The complexity is so evident that there's no place for a clear, optimistic view about the immediate futures. But here we are. We have to continue to fight, as you already said. And then I would like to come to Brussels or to talk with you by this means, telematic ways if necessary, but sharing that your time with other metropolitan areas around Europe that would be happy to have the possibility of talking with you, of hearing you again. Thank you, Mr. Olbrycht.
Yes, Mr. Olbrycht, in name of the CIDOP, thank you very much for your intervention in this debate. And I hope when we can fly again, I hope to see you in Barcelona in another meeting like today. And thank you very much another time. Okay, bye.